You're sitting on a train, gliding between major population centers, pounding donut holes. You look out the window to see surfers wiping out in a funny, not scary way as the sun crosses the horizon. You're not dreaming, you're on the Pacific Surfliner, a lovely 351-mile or 564-kilometer ride between San Luis Obispo, Los Angeles, and San Diego, California. It's the second busiest passenger route in the United States. It just has this one little issue where it's going to plummet into the ocean. The Surfline is the only rail link between San Diego and LA, the US's 8th and 2nd largest cities. It's about a 3-hour ride, while the drive is 2 and change hours, but can easily climb up to 4 in peak traffic. Long stretches of the route run right along the coastline, sometimes at sea level, sometimes on top of coastal bluffs. In these spots, the train is frequently less than 200 feet or slightly over half a soccer field from the water. The result? It's gorgeous! I sent my writer Amy from San Diego to LA, and this is what she saw. But beauty is pain. The pain here is that when tracks are that close to the water, the ocean will attempt to swallow them up or cliffs below them will crumble, especially as weather gets more and more extreme. That's what the Surfliner faces today, and it's been nigh impossible to get everyone to agree on what to do about it. The tracks are owned, in chunks, by an alphabet soup of different entities. And while the Pacific Surfliner by name is an Amtrak service, the same tracks are used by the Metrolink and Coaster commuter rail services, as well as freight trains carrying about $1 billion in freight volume per year. It's also designated on the Department of Defense's Strategic Rail Corridor Network because it connects their military bases to big ports. Passenger ridership peaked near 3 million people in 2017, but COVID smacked it down and its recovery was hindered by a near constant parade of service interruptions in the years following. By fiscal year 2023, annual ridership was just 1.5 million. So let's talk about those service interruptions. This is the entire passenger service history of one 40-mile or about 65-kilometer segment of the Surfline from here to here. Parts of the segment are right on the beach, with hillsides and cliffs to the east that have a nasty habit of landsliding into the tracks. Passenger service here started in 1888 and went on uninterrupted for 45 years until an earthquake triggered a cliff slide. They fixed that up and didn't close again until 1938, when heavy storms flooded the tracks. There were a few more floods and cliff issues in the 90s, and then, in the 2020s, things got ridiculous. Cue the clown music. September of 21, landslide, they fix up and resume. 1 year later, the rocks under the tracks are shifting about half an inch a day, and the tracks themselves have moved a full 28 inches, or about 70 centimeters, closer to the water. Service stops to fix. February 2023, we're back, just weekend only. April, back in full. 10 days later, another landslide. June, reopen. 9 days later, landslide. January 2024, down again. Back to weekend service in March, then full. April 2025, shut down again to reinforce the tracks, back up in June. That's up to date at the time of writing, but may well be outdated by the time you're watching. And already, when I'm saying this, over half of the periods of service disruption in this segment's over 130-year history have happened in the last 5 years. Want to see how aggressively the water is coming for the Surfliner? These are the tracks in Beach in 2013. Here they are in 2021. Clearly, there are serious and worsening issues with track stability on this stretch, and I regret to inform you, it's not the only danger zone. Down here in Del Mar, the trains run across these coastal bluffs, which is all well and good, except that stormwater runs down the hills to the east of the tracks and erodes the cliffs underneath them, and big and growing waves down at the bottom of the cliffs erode those too. Every year, these bluffs erode about 6 inches, which is serious business when the tracks are just feet from them. Not to mention that in the world of bluff erosion, long periods of a few inches disappearing a year tend to be punctuated eventually by big splashy collapses. Between 2018 and April 2024, the Del Mar section had to shut down passenger service 7 different times. The last several years have seen tons of band-aid solutions. In San Clemente, they've laid down thousands of tons of rocks, aka riprap, on the coastal side of the tracks to hold back the waves. They've also built seawalls for the same purpose, but that slows the ocean from replenishing sand on the beach, which also brings the water closer to the tracks. To stop the tracks from sliding, they've anchored them with 100-foot metal anchors into the slope to the east. To handle the stormwater coming down from the hills, they've built drainage ditches under the tracks. And as for dirt and debris from landslides, they've built some catchment walls to hold it back. In Del Mar, they've driven concrete and steel pilings down 65 feet or just under 20 meters to secure the tracks, and started a 3-year project to strengthen the bluffs. And all these solutions do stabilize and protect the tracks enough to keep passenger service chugging, but in the long term, they won't be enough. So what would be? Protecting the 1.7 miles or 2.7 kilometers at highest risk in Del Mar has been a multi-decade project with a few main solutions out front right now. The first is to move the tracks inland to Interstate 5, connected via tunnel, for tens of billions of dollars. The second and third involve putting the whole stretch in a tunnel under the city for around $4 billion over around a decade. All of which got some vocal locals in a real tizzy. What about my property values? What about the noise, the vibrations? What if a freight train spills hazardous material? Are you gonna eminent domain my house? Under my house? In my backyard? All that pushback led to the eventual creation of a fourth plan, investing a lot more money in reinforcing the bluffs and even adding another track to ease congestion. Up in San Clemente, they're in the middle of a feasibility study on various plans to protect the line where it is for the next 30 years, building new catchment walls and expanding on existing ones, reinforcing with more riprap and larger boulders, slope and erosion monitoring for high-risk areas, drainage ditches, and more. Though apparently, according to the written comments submitted by the public, you could actually solve this entire problem with more sand, or destroying the railroad altogether. In fairness to the public, riprap does contribute to sand loss on the beach, which we know can create risks for the railroad and make the beach worse for hanging out. So how about moving it inland? They're studying those options too, trying to relocate the stretch of track between San Juan Capistrano and San Onofre State Beach at a cost of a few $1 billion. That study isn't as far along as the one focused on the short and medium-term solutions is, so who's to say what they'll recommend or how much the community is going to relish the opportunity to have an inland rail corridor in their backyards. Basically what we have here are a few unstoppable forces meeting a few immovable objects. On the unstoppable forces side, we have the mighty Pacific waves, storms, floods, gravity, erosion, time, and the need for this rail corridor for freight, passengers, and the Department of Defense. Then we have the immovable objects, stakeholders who don't want to see billions of dollars spent to protect the train where it is, or move it underground, or move it inland, or build a ramp that would allow trains to jump the area entirely. Not that there's been a feasibility study on that yet. I wish I could tell you how this all shakes out, but at this point, I really don't know. Something's gonna give in, either the fine people of California or the land underneath the tracks. That is, unless they build my ramp. The Pacific Surfliner, of course, is very close to the ocean. But you know what's even closer? The shave you'll get with the help of this video's sponsor, Henson Shaving. Henson sells the last razor you will ever need to buy. Seriously, these things are built to last for decades, meaning no constant repurchasing of some dinky razor from the grocery store that makes you bleed. Henson's razors are engineered to exacting specifications that guarantee a close, smooth shave by securing the blade better and holding it closer than the Dinksters do. And for those of you who are fond of the planet, they use no plastic in their product or shipping materials. So you're getting a better shave and a moral victory, all at a lower lifetime cost than rebuying lesser razors again and again and again, not to mention Band-Aids. I personally recommend it, and I also recommend that you go to order one right now because if you go to the link in the description and use code HAI at checkout, you'll get 100 free blades with your purchase.